Ready or Not is the film that we looked at and deep dove into for this episode of the Fandom Portals Podcast. It was made in 2019, and in this episode, you will learn what a worn wedding dress can really say about a character. Now, costume design does a lot of the heavy lifting. You'll also learn about the creepy but clever horror tropes, including the ones that are hiding in plain sight in this movie, like Eat the Rich and The Deadly Game. And you'll also learn about how Ready or Not mixes blood, laughs, and the brutal truth about wealth and privilege, and the surprising ways that satire sharpens this horror movie, and why you might never look at rich families the same ever again. Welcome to the Fandom Portals Podcast, the podcast that explores how fandoms can help us learn and grow. I'm your host, Aaron, and I'm here, as always, with Mr. Brash Rackram.
Hello.
All right. This week, guys, we are looking at the horror comedy satire film Ready or Not, made in 2019. This movie is about a bride's wedding night that takes a sinister turn when her eccentric new in-laws force her to take part in a terrifying game. But before we get into that, and before we get into our deep dive, we're doing our gratitudes for the week. And Brash, I'm going to go first. This week, I am grateful for my curiosity. Yes, I'm doing a personal gratitude because usually I'm grateful for other things, but sometimes it's good to be grateful for the things that you are, practicing a bit of self-love. So I am grateful for my curiosity because my curiosity is sometimes a bad thing, but it is often a good thing too, because it sends me down deep diving rabbit holes that allow me to do amazing things like this podcast. And it also helps me to learn new things and grow. And my curiosity is it's almost like this drive to complete something. And I don't know if I would want to be without it, if I could fix it. You know, if you can get a switch to turn something off in your personality and you're just like, would you do that? I wouldn't, because I like it. So I am grateful for my curiosity this week. Brash, what are you grateful for?
I am ungrateful.
Oh, here we go.
Ungrateful for it's my own fault, but I missed out on voting because I forgot and was watching wrestling. So because I missed voting, I got a fine in the mail for $161.
So in Australia, it is mandatory for every person over the age of 18 to vote in all federal elections. And Brash was a naughty boy and decided to stay home and watch WrestleMania instead of go to his local voting booth and have his say. So the government charged him $160 for the convenience of not hearing his opinion.
But I don't like any of the people. I just go to work, get paid so I can play video games and watch movies.
It's a simple life. Yeah, I think you had an enjoyable day watching WrestleMania.
Yeah,
all the same. So
yeah, I just have to fork out some money. It's fine.
Would you pay? Somebody says you can't watch WrestleMania unless you pay $160. Would you pay that money?
Yes.
Problem solved. You're fine. All good.
Well, I'm trying to save up now for the moment. Trying to save off as much as I can at the moment because I want to try and get to Perth for the crown jewel. This will be the last time anyone gets to see John Cena in a ring ever since it's his last year.
Okay, and he's coming to Australia. All right, Ready or Not is the film that we looked at. So stick around, guys. It's going to be a good episode. This movie, directed by Matt Bettinelli-Oplin and Tyler Gillette, also known as Radio Silence. They're famous for the Scream movies and also Abigail. Written by Guy Busick for Final Destination Bloodlines, a movie you recently saw, Brash. Yes, he is a horror veteran. The movie stars Samara Weaving. And Screen Rant actually rates this movie, Ready or Not, as her best horror performance.
Yeah, I gotta say, she has been in a lot of horror movies, but I find there's horror movies and then there's your sort of B-grade horror movies that a lot of actors, even famous actors, are in, but they just don't cross that sort of threshold of being extremely popular. Yep. Even though there's one coming out, I feel like probably at the time of its release, even though it might have done all right, probably didn't hit the same numbers as your Screams or your Chainsaw Massacres or your 13 Nightmare on Elm Streets and stuff like that, or Friday the 13th.
It was an unsung hero. It only made $57 million at the worldwide box office over its release, but it was made on a budget of $6 million. So it's considered a financial success. But yeah, you're right. It didn't get as much as the Scream franchise, which has now birthed over 7 or 8 movies, I think. But it is indeed getting a sequel. And funnily enough, they've actually secured, according to some announcements, some pretty big names in the sequel. So Samara Weaving is set to return, and Sarah Michelle Gellar is also involved, obviously famous for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Elijah Wood, my favorite Hobbit, is going to be in it as well. He's no stranger to horror as well.
Your favorite Hobbit's Frodo?
Well, he's in my top 4.
Wait, what about Bilbo?
He's my favorite Hobbit.
Oh, so who's the 5th one that got left out?
Pippin.
Oh, yeah, he's been a bit.
I'm like Gandalf. What a joke. Come on.
What about second breakfast?
That I want to get that tattooed on my arm. Anyway, I digress. Another person in the movie coming out in Ready or Not, Here I Come is what the sequel's called, is Kevin Durand, who played Proxima Caesar. He does a good creepy.
Oh yeah. He's just cool in general. He's just a cool dude.
Yeah, same directors, same writers, and filming began this April in 2025, so it should be released early next year, but there is no date confirmed for the sequel. But yes, Samara Weaving, Australian actress, very famous for us growing up as millennials, as she played Indy Walker on Home and Away.
Home and Away.
Yeah, she actually appeared in over 300 episodes of Home and Away, which is a Australian soap opera you've heard us talking about a lot. And she's also in Ash vs. Evil Dead, which I think we should put on the list, Brash, because that's another comedy horror mashup that I've never seen.
Yeah.
And this movie also stars our favorite TV nerd, the man himself, Adam Brody.
I love Adam Brody.
From the OC, Seth Cohen, and also plays Noah in the hit TV show Nobody Wants This. He's a famous nerd, a famous Jew, and in this movie, a famous alcoholic. He's probably my favorite character in this movie, honestly.
He is mine. He is 100% mine. Second only by the younger sister. F's everything up.
Oh, yeah. She's crazy funny. But yes, this movie was actually also nominated for a Saturn Award for Best Horror Film in 2021. It lost to The Invisible Man, but it was also up against Dr. Sleep and Midsommar. Midsommar. It was kind of swept under the rug, wasn't it? We talked about it a little bit earlier, but
yeah, it didn't really get the
praise or the approval that it
for something that's actually pretty good and has become quite a popular trope now with like all of Jordan Peele's movies like Us and
Get Out.
I actually haven't watched the other two, but I've watched Nope, and I loved Nope. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. It was so good, but like spooky hilarious, but hilarious. Yeah, no, I really liked it.
We will now get into our next segment. In this hot take segment, we discuss our first thoughts of the media and unpack the boldest opinions from what surprised us to what split the room. We'll also highlight your hot takes from our Threads, Instagram, and Reddit communities. So if you want to get involved with that, make sure you check out the show notes. It's all in there, and we'll read out your little comment on our podcast and have a little chat about it. So if you want to be part of our community, make sure you go and do that like these amazing people will from our Reddit. The first one on our Reddit is Thief Bam 357. Who says that the characters in this movie made boneheaded decisions. Why didn't she grab one of the 2 pistols? Why didn't she just keep running instead of going to the stable? Why did she think that kid wasn't going to shoot her? Why would anybody in their right mind think to plead with anybody in that house? And you know what? I think in horror movies, not that I'm a seasoned horror movie person, but there's always an element of you should have done that.
Oh, 100%. Hindsight is 2020.
Exactly. And I don't think you can really predict what you would do in a situation like that, because you're never in one. It's an unlikely situation, and fear takes over. And our logical brain, watching this from our popcorn-soaked couch, can't really dictate the decisions of the characters in the movie. Like, it's fun to talk about as well. It's fun to say, "What an idiot! You should have done this." Like, never go upstairs while you're being chased by a horror movie villain. That's my rule 101. Never go upstairs because you're trapped.
But the thing is, like, with the whole thing of why would you plead with anyone in that family? I mean, the only person realistically she really sort of half tries to plead to the most is Daniel. And I can feel that because he's like,
he's cynical through the whole movie.
But and I get what she's coming from, but I also get where you come from, because the thing is, when you're trapped and you've got nowhere to go, pleading you've got left.
That's it, yeah.
Five or flat.
Exactly. And Legal Swimming 831 has said that they liked Samara Weaving in this, and she was also just as good in The Babysitter. I haven't seen The Babysitter.
Babysitter is also really good and something people need to watch.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into our threads. All right, we have something from our Threads community. Peruna 2001, a avid and frequent commenter on our post, says that they loved it. I went into the theater not totally knowing what to expect. The scene where the maid gets killed, but it takes several tries, reminded me of Dr. Evil and Austin Powers killing Will Ferrell's character. It made me laugh. I love this type of movie, just having fun. I like it. And then the crazy aunt goes in with the axe and just, finishes the job and everybody's disgusted. I liked the fact that they were kind of disgusted by what they were doing because it showed, A, that they didn't do it very often, and 2, it showed that even though they were fully morally committed to doing this, they were actually very inept, which kind of mirrors that sort of political slash like class association where some people that are in a wealthy position aren't qualified to be in a wealthy position, even though they get lots of money for what they're doing, if you know what I mean by that, like generational wealth especially, which is what this movie's a commentary of. But we'll get into that a lot more a little bit later as well. Eluin from Our Threads also says, you learn almost nothing about her history or her desires, which makes it really hard to care about her more than the fact that she's being chased by murderers. I think she's referring to Samara Weaving's character of Grace. I mean, the characters are a little bit thin in this movie, but I think we learn a little bit about her just from passing dialogue. The fact that she is a bit of she's an orphaned character. She comes from foster homes. And I think that is also what they use to explain the fact that she is pretty savvy and has survival skills. Like she can front up to people that are similar size to her or those that are attacking her. She's got a bit of, as we say,
grit.
Yeah, a bit of mongrel in her. So
mongrel.
Yeah, she's able to fight through some pretty disastrous situations. And one thing that I like about Samara Weaving actually is her performances when she's not really saying much dialogue, but she's evoking fear or she is screaming. Because a lot of the scream queens that you can think of in movies like horror movies, they kind of go over the top or they go high pitched. And but when Samara Weaving did it in this movie, Ready or Not, she was like guttural or animalistic, and it really played to the fact that she was actually in a fearful situation and she was fighting for her life, especially when she had the bullet wound through her hand and had to climb out of the goat pit, which is obviously a very famous scene in this movie. Probably at the start of the second, that's where shit got real for me. And I was watching and I was like, okay, this is a horror movie. That's not a funny horror movie part. This is a horror movie part. But yeah, I don't know if I would detract from the movie because there isn't much character development in terms of her character, of Grace's character, because I think we're given enough. We're given enough to say that she's completely different from these people.
Yeah.
And she's also a character that's craving family. And that is why she's invested in, trying to fit in or trying to be a part of this family and go along with the absurd traditions because she's never been a part of a family before. She's a child from foster care. So I think that alone is enough character development for a movie like this anyway. So
I wouldn't want this movie to have like flashbacks, like that would ruin it. But just in her survival or just like things that she does, relating them back to like something she did in the past, that's why how she knows how to use that. Because like she doesn't know that, well, the bullets are just for show, but she tucks the bullet in it, cocks it, aims it, fires it, nothing happens. So she knows how to shoot a gun.
Yeah, load a gun, shoot a gun, yeah.
Yeah,
correct.
like when she's still young, she could have been like, all shaky and be like, I've been to like the gun range or I've done something, I know how to use this thing, blah, blah. Just like little bits and pieces throughout the movie that sort of like relate back to her past a little bit could have helped people, I don't know, relate to her a bit more. But yeah, I agree with you. Like realistically, it doesn't need it, I don't believe. Like not for this kind of movie, because this is purely a girl gets invited to crazy rich person house. She then has to fight for her life to survive.
Yeah, and I think that, when they made this, and it's kind of a breath of fresh air, really, they made it with the intention of it being a standalone movie, which doesn't happen very often. So they gave you all the information that you needed and nothing more. Now it's becoming a franchise with a sequel coming out. Maybe we will learn a little bit more about Samara Weaving's character of Grace.
I am a little bit apprehensive about, because now if they try and do a whole backstory thing with her, are they going to ruin the movie by having this huge expose that is going to detract from the actual what the movie is, which is her surviving?
Yeah, I don't know how much of a presence she should have or will have in the sequel, because
True.
if we don't know what happened to her at the end of this movie. Obviously, she survives and she's sitting on the steps of this movie with a bloodied and burnt out wedding dress, and she's the sole survivor of the Domas fortune. Incredibly wealthy now, or is she in jail? We don't know.
Yeah, and well, it also could be a similar thing to like Final Destination, where because they were stuck in the actual thing, they say, "Oh, remember what happened to the McMurrays? What are they called? How they like, oh, did they die in a house fire?" And it's like,
That
well,
was
that's
some
what
foreshadowing.
the thing foreshadowing that like they're not the only people who have dealings with the devil.
Isn't that funny how that one little throwaway line is what is probably now going to birth the sequel? Because, yeah, I picked that up too. I picked up the fact that there were other families in their position that obviously made deals with LaBelle.
LaBelle.
Yeah. And they obviously got their fortune. The Domas got their fortune from him. And there was that slight nod at the end to say, yes, you got away from me. You were able to survive. But then, there's that whole tradition that goes through with selecting the game for the new entrants to the family as well. How much is going to be similar in other families that go through these kinds of ritualistic offerings for the next time,
Yeah, and she might go ahead and it might be her character might be going around and maybe using that wealth to try and find other people who are going to be in her situation and try and help them.
Yeah. Well, that's true. She might be the expert on this sort of situation now.
Yeah.
And helping the next survivor. But yeah, I think that I'll definitely be going to see Ready or Not, Here I Come. And we'll get into our next segment, which is called Get to Know Your Crossbow. Nah, not really. It's Fandom Fact Face Off. All right. In the Fandom Fact Face Off, hosts go head to head with trivia facts about the focus media, learning new facts along the way. When the hosts collectively gain 25 points from correct answers, we'll give away a movie voucher to someone on our mailing list. If you want to join our mailing list, you can go to www.fandomportalspodcast.com and join there. We'll send you one email a month with our monthly email on it, and you'll be the first one to know about any giveaways, and all of our winners will be taken from there. We've already got 5 points, Brash, which means we need 20 more before we can give something away. Do you want me to go first?
Yes, you can go first.
Okay. This movie, Ready or Not, was shot chronologically, which is kind of rare because usually in a location movie, they shoot the scenes that they need to and they put them together in post in chronological order. However, this movie was shot in chronological order, which means the very first scene that you see is the first scene that was shot, and then so forth to the very, very end. Now, they did this for a particular reason. Do you know what that reason was? And I'll give you a clue. It's because Samara Weaving had to do something 26 times, and it was required that she do it chronologically.
Because my first thought was because as she's going, she gets more shit on her as she goes. So like blood and dirt and bile and shit from falling into the goat pit. So if they were to do it out of order, they'd be constantly having to try and match the amount of shit that's on her as she went through the night.
Yeah. So pretty much the wedding dress and the way that she had to put on that wedding dress for 26 to 30 days of shooting, that's what she had to do over and over and over again. And she actually committed to putting on the dress after a day of shooting and after the fact that it was dirty. And, she'd obviously go home after her work, and then she'd come back and it'd be torn, it'd be burned, it'd be bloodied, and it'd be weathered. And it was to match the film's escalating violence. And Samara Weaving's commitment meant that wearing versions of the same dirty and sweaty dress every day under intense heat and high action sequences became something that she kind of had to get used to. And the garment actually became allegorical for the growth that she goes through in terms of mirroring her rejection to the Domas' family's patriarchal and ritualistic legacies. Because at the start of the movie, it's white, it's perfect, it's pristine. The lighting in the actual movie is really colorful, and you're hopeful for the fact that she's starting and entering this new family. And then the moment the dress rips is when she's getting out of the dumb waiter. And that's when she starts to click that this family isn't actually what it seems. So that's the ceremonial dress that's supposed to represent purity and submission to the patriarchal regime of the Domas family. There's a tear in it. So there's a little fracture of thought where she's like, oh, maybe this isn't really what it seems. And then finally, the part where she rips the dress the most, or the first part when she rips the dress the most, was after Alex tells her everything about the traditions of the Domas family. So he says, this is the only card that you could have drawn that could have made this happen. My family is in league with a dark entity. We have to try and kill you. If you survive till sunrise, we all die. and then she tears the dress around the knees so she can continue to run away. So the dress deteriorates in a fashion, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse chronologically throughout the performance until naturally at the very end, she is sitting in no longer a white wedding dress, but a black charred and bloodied wedding dress, which is the complete opposite of how she started. So this dress is almost like a character in the movie that shows you how the character of Grace is progressing with her feelings towards the Domas family as the movie goes on as well. And they needed to shoot chronologically in order to get that effect. I'll give you the point for that.
Yeah, which is a pretty spectacular thing if you think about it.
Oh, yeah. But for her to be able to put that dress on after a day.
Yeah, Jesus.
Okay.
My first one, similar to aspects of clothing, there was something that she had to wear that they had to modify because it's no longer created. Do you know what it is?
Yes, I read this. They had to recreate her shoes because Converse didn't make them in the yellow color anymore.
No, yeah, so they wanted yellow shoes, but yeah, they don't make that color anymore, so they had to get them custom spray painted.
Yeah. As soon as I saw those yellow shoes, I was like, I wonder if they have them because my partner, Kalia, she loves Converse.
Yeah.
I was like, she would love a pair of those. Because when we first met, she used to wear high tops in the Converse and exactly like the ones that Samara Weaving's wearing in the movie. And definitely something she would wear. But yeah, I like those shoes. They're great. Right, I go?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay. Ready or Not. And the game Hide and Seek was based and inspired by folklore and urban legends. But most specifically, the deadly game trope was also very heavily used. And it originated from this piece of literature. Do you know what it was?
I don't believe. Is it a famous piece of literature? Would you say?
It's famous for the horror movie genre and trope, but I wouldn't say that it is completely famous.
It's not from the book that Clara reads to the kids. Paradise Lost?
No, not Paradise Lost. So this is the book called The Most Dangerous Game, made in 1932.
Oh,
it's the original trope where a hunter traps people on his island and he hunts them for sport. And
I should know this.
Yeah, it's born
because
countless
of the
adaptations.
Movie that I've picked for us.
Yeah. So yeah, this movie has a massive theme of the rich or the privileged hunting down the poor. And yeah, The Most Dangerous Game was the original book that was created that has that in it.
Okay, so mine, this might be also a bit of a difficult one, but I think it's pretty fun. So there were 5 board games in the family cupboard towards the end where it seems almost purposefully that there's a gap between the people standing there to show a clear view of all the board games in the cupboard. I won't say name them all, but can you name 3 of them?
I remember one that had like the devil's face on it that was called LaBelle's Gambit. And then there was one called Family Ritual, but I don't remember the rest.
Think Court of Owls.
The Batman?
What are the Court of Owls?
Secret Society.
Close. Secret local government.
Secret Council.
Hey. So yeah, that's them. So Family Ritual. Thinking Family Ritual. It's like all these board games are pretty much there for specific reasons. The Family Ritual, obviously, because it's their family sort of thing, and that's a ritual that they do for the weddings to play the games, and they all want to ritualistically kill Grace. And then Secret Council, because they back in the they said the movie back in the day, they used to it was their father's idea to like wear masks and gowns and everything like that as like a secret sort of council. LaBelle's Gambit obviously is like because that's their board game. That's their game. It's their gambit because they made that gambit with the
yeah, that's right, the bargain.
Yeah, bargain.
Yep.
So and then Sunrise. So if you mix it to Sunrise, they all die.
So those board games are all
placed on purpose.
Act of foreshadowing. There's a lot of foreshadowing in this movie as well. And I actually read something that said that some people think that all of that foreshadowing, and especially some of the things that the characters say throughout, actually allude to the fact that the game of hide and seek was actually rigged for Grace. So it was rigged that she would pick the card of hide and seek, because at the very start of the movie, if you remember, the kids are running around and they're wearing the mask and they're saying like, kill, kill, kill. And then, Daniel says to put the mask away. But if this is something that has only happened once in their lifetime and never before the kids were around, there's obviously been some chat about it through the family. This might be something that's happening. And, I feel like the Domases, they pick and choose who is going to become a part of their family because they are aligned to their ideals. Like if you look at the other two characters, with Charity, played by Elise Levesque, and also Fitch, played by Christian Brun, both of those characters, they're assholes basically. They're happy to be indoctrinated into this rich lifestyle, with Christian Braun's character of Fitch. He's like the clueless social climber. And then Charity, who is Daniel's wife,
Cutthroat go-getter.
Yeah, aspirational. She's cruel. She's self-preserving. She's got this elitism about her. And she even said, I'd rather be dead than poor or something like that, or I'll never go back there again. And she's more in it than her husband is, who is actually a part of the family and he's indoctrinated into it, and he hates it. Yeah, and I just thought it was so ironic that her name is Charity, and she's literally she's anything but. Yeah, she's literally anything but. And I thought that was really clever. But going back to how they thought it might have been rigged, there's also, when they first get married and they're kissing on the bed and then the auntie's hiding in the background and she says, you'll have to hide better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's almost like the whole family, except for Alex, is in on it.
And actually in saying that, if they were, because usually you can't read a game. It's just, it's random what card you get.
It's picked.
If they somehow figured out a way to rig it because they're like, oh, we don't want some person who's just who took our son away and
exactly, yeah,
and we don't want that kind of person in our family. They might try to rig it, and then it could have actually been the work of
LaBelle,
or the devil himself, who Mr. LaBelle, who did in fact go, you know what, if they want to cheat, because they cheat, like they cheated. If they did that, they cheated, and their consequence is that they would all
be beaten by this person.
And they'll either just die at once or unfortunately for the mother and don't make it to the end. And some of the other poor people in the house, but pretty much everyone else in that house dies because they decided they wanted to cheat and not let this person in their house instead of playing the game fairly.
Yeah, and you could even look at the inverse of that, whereas if the devil wanted to continue this tradition, have this tradition keep going, he needs to include people in the Domas family who are going to want to continue that tradition. And looking at Grace, she's like the outsider. She's a working class individual. She's thrust into this elite system of power. Her name literally symbolizes like moral dignity and resilience. And she survives through this trauma. But looking at her as a person and in a personality, this person that Alex has picked, for one, it's going to draw Alex away from the Domas family, which removes a member from this cult. And then two, he's going to have an inserted member into that family who's going to disagree with the status quo. So it's almost like this game was kind of rigged to single her out and have her removed from the family from the very start, whether it was from the actual devil, Mr. LaBelle, or whether it was from the actual Domas family. But either way, she never stood a chance to be accepted in that family.
I think that it was the family's choice to rig the game.
Yeah.
And then not so much that LaBelle helped her, but maybe it was like sort of more rooting for her. And then that's why then at the end when then everyone gets killed, or when
gives like a nod.
Gives her a nod and says, congratulations.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I there's also an argument to say that perhaps the family did orchestrate it, because remember there was the dialogue throughout the whole movie where they were saying that Alex was deviating further and further away from the family. So they didn't want him having this happy marriage with Grace because it would ostracize him further from them. So just like what happened with the auntie, with Aunt Helene, if his spouse died as a result of this tradition, then perhaps he would have no other reason to seek an outward look from what the family were doing, and he would turn back into the family because they all perceived him as being the new head of the Domas empire, or dominion as they like to call it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot
because there was the darkness in him, whereas Daniel the older brother, who really should be the one to heir, didn't have that. And you see that sort of when they're kids as well, how Daniel's trying to protect the younger brother, but the younger brother was sort of into it.
Yeah, I actually found that really fascinating when you're looking at Alex and Daniel. And Daniel was really protective and sort of almost like he was a bit more resilient to the draw of the or the seduction of what the Domas family is doing. And Alex was in the dark about it, but he was also kind of into it. But then you look at who Daniel married. He married Charity, who's really into it, just like Alex. And Alex married Grace, who wouldn't be into it, just like Daniel. So their closest familial relationship, they found familiarity in their partners, and their personality types kind of match in that way too. I found that really interesting to look at those two characters and see the psychology behind that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting take. Yeah,
but
we digress.
Yeah, let's get on to my question. All right, the ending of this movie was actually supposed to be very, very different. Obviously, this ending had the Domas family explode in a combustion of blood as dawn rose after a slight moment where they thought to themselves, maybe this curse wasn't real because nothing happened when the sun rose. But then in an instant, they all decided to erupt in a red fury and flash. However, the original ending in the original script was different. Do you know what was supposed to happen in the original ending?
Honestly, no. I'm going to take a stab. This was meant to be a one-off, so I don't think they'd have them actually kill Samara Weaving, her character, Grace, because then there's a chance they can continue if they did that. Whereas how they left it is pretty much end of story. I'm going to say, does she just kill them all?
No.
No? Does Daniel somehow survive and help her kill them all?
No.
No, I don't know. I have no clue.
Your first idea was correct. Originally, Grace was supposed to be killed by the Domas family. And the reason she was supposed to be ritualistically sacrificed. And the reason they wanted to do that was because it would further epitomize the point that they were trying to make through the movie, that the elite class and their privilege is extremely dangerous, but it is also extremely oppressive to the working class, to the point where she fought and fought and fought and fought and still got
lost.
Really nowhere, still lost, just like people do when they're fighting against the rich elitists. And then their generational wealth continues on, even though there are so many people sort of fighting against them, and their traditions continue as well. So the original directors thought that was kind of the message that they wanted to portray, but then they also thought to themselves, people are going to come to this movie and audiences really don't want to see this movie end with the rich people being victorious. So they thought, they actually, I've got a quote here. So it says, when they wrote it, Bettinelli Oplin and Gillette said it was something that they knew that they needed to change. And they thought to themselves, let's try and have our cake and eat it too. He said, it's not real, as in the curse isn't real. And these clowns completely fucked up. And, then we want to kill them all. And the team came up with this fake out ending. And the challenge was actually trying to prove the curse was real without extending the film to unnecessarily long length. So they went through 20 different drafts and most of them were way too long, they said. And many of the versions were pitched include like similar Final Destination style sequences where the family members would die of eerie or accidental circumstances. But they just said, they said that in the end, the outlandishly spontaneous combustion would work the best because it was fast and it was absurd. And it was kind of like a moment like, oh my God, this is batshit crazy. And it was probably the best idea that they've ever had. And it was either going to work or it wasn't. And the fact that Samara Weaving laughed during that scene,
the whole thing,
that was improvised by Samara Weaving because they did so many takes where she was completely shocked and scared by it. And Samara was like, can I just try one where I laugh? And I was like, yes, do that.
Yeah.
And that's the one that stuck in.
Where she fought all this hard. They're all still alive. She fought for all this time to stay alive. And then they all just start exploding and she's just reveling in it.
Yeah. And the directors actually said, the reason they settled on this ending was because sometimes watching a pack of rotten, no good 1%ers get what's coming to them is enough on its own. And, I feel like that's a take that a lot of the audience members agreed with because it is quite well received critically and the ending is quite well received as well. But I wanted to see the rich people win. I don't know what that says about me, but I thought the whole time that Samara Weaving was going to be ritualistically sacrificed, and the point that they were going to, like the narrative point that they were going to drive through was that, privilege and entitlement are really, really dangerous things. And that was the message that was going to come in the end of the movie. But I think the comedic element and the fact that they wanted the people going to see this movie, which is going to be the working class, looking and seeing the rich elitists winning wouldn't be something that they'd sit well in their mouths with, especially during the time this was made, because I think that was when a rich elitist was ascending the presidency ranks to become, part of the governing body. So I think that they made the best call for the audience, but for me, I think I would have liked it better if it had a darker ending. But that's just really me.
I would have loved if they had an ending when the cops are all running around their house and the one comes up to Samara and is like, "Are you okay, Lola?" You hear in the background another police. There's one still alive.
Oh, that would have been cool.
And it was my boy Adam Brody.
That would have been sick. I would love for him to come back in the sequel. But yeah, I think, oh man, the reason I like Adam Brody is because he's like,
plays sarcastic so well.
He does. He so
cynical.
does.
He's plays cynical so well. Even him in OC, his cynicalness in OC was amazing. His sarcasm in that was great. But yeah, no, I would love that because he tried to, maybe it was the fact that he already died, like sort of he would maybe died at one point. The curse didn't get him, sort of like how it is in the Final Destination 3 or whatever it is when she dies and the person brings her back to life and she escapes the death curse sort of thing. Or just because maybe there was like, you know what, Adam Brady's a good guy.
Yeah. I think they used his character because he kind of every single character in this movie represents an element of the elitist class or the richer sort of class. And they satirize them and make a whole character about one element that represents that sort of class system. Like Daniel was the morally conflicted enabler. Like he was aware that his family was evil, but there was nothing he could do about it. So he just got drunk all the time and he resisted until the end. And he ends up submitting to that ridiculousness of his family's elite status because he turns Grace into the Domas family and gets her ritualistically sacrificed. But he also has a change of heart. So he's got this complex relationship that's marred with tragedy and conscience. And that's what he's sort of representing, is that morally conflicted part where there's the people in the family of these traditionalists that really know what they're doing is wrong, but they can't break free of it because their lifestyle that they have is, it's very enticing. So that's what his character sort of represented in that. And I like that about him. And for me, I do like Adam Brody, but I still feel like he was irredeemable.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Like it's only a fan, you only be like a fanfic sort of fucking thing for me is that Adam Brody be alive again.
That would have been a good little chill for the horror genre though. If a cop in the end was just like, there's someone still alive, and even leaving it as like, we don't know which one it is. That would have been cool.
And then like Samara like sort of standing there and hears that until the cigarette drops out of her mouth or something.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I liked about the cigarette stuff as well was at the start of the movie, how she's smoking in her room before she's married. And then, she's confronted by the mother, Becky Domas, and she says, "Do you smoke?" And she goes, "Oh, no. And like obviously she's masking who she really is to be able to fit in. And then as soon as they're all gone again, she lights up that cigarette and she's like, "Okay, be myself again." It's like the oppression of like trying to fit in with an in-law family. Anyway, your last question. I digress.
I do. Okay. The exterior shots of the mansion that was filmed in is Parkwood Estates in Oshawa, Ontario, Canada. It was the same estate ground as another famous movie mansion.
I know this one. Yes. Well, I know that it was used for the X-Men movie. I know that it was used for Chicago, and I know that it was also used for the Beauty and the Beast live action movie.
That's none of the ones.
What one do you have?
The same one used for Billy Madison.
I'd like to thank you, Veronica, for beating the shit out of me. Great movie. Well, I wasn't wrong, but I just didn't.
You weren't wrong.
Yeah. So, no, I've got that one. They actually had a lot of trouble shooting on there because it was heritage listed. So the cinematographer, Brett Jukowitz, had to adapt lighting schemes on the fly to preserve the eerie ambience, but also to present that sort of natural light at the very start when the wedding was happening. But I thought that that Gothic mansion was so good, man. That was so intricate maze.
Bonus question though. Only one part of this whole entire movie that was the set created. Did you know what set it was?
Yeah, the goat pit.
The goat pit, yeah. That's the only set that they made was the goat pit. Everything else was shot in the mansion.
I would absolutely hate if that was actually a real thing.
But I mean, like, no, there's just like a pit that was like there. It's like they had to build a pit.
Yeah.
That's not just like a stellar, like a storm cellar or a fucking retrofitted wine cellar or something like that. No, it's just it's a set that they built, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I think that the intricacies of that mansion just played into the Domas family's estate too, because it was obviously owned by a family that had so many secrets, and all of the hallways, you got lost in it. You never saw a repeat hallway. You were always turned around, and there was those back alleys as well that Alex and Grace sort of went through to escape them. Yeah, I think that was a perfect location for that movie. Did I get that point or not?
Yeah, because you gained more moves than I originally had.
Fair enough. All right, so that means for this segment out of 6, I think we got 4.
Yeah, I think so.
That brings our total to 9 points, which means that we have, quick maths, 16 left to go before we can send somebody off to the movies. This segment is called Fucking Rich People. No, it's called Set Secrets. This is where we look behind the scenes of the focused movie to give you all the information on what went right, what went wrong, and what was interesting about the way that the movie was made. Brash, in this segment here, I want to talk about the satire of this movie, the class warfare and the privilege, especially the eat the rich trope. So have you heard of the eat the rich trope before?
No, I don't think I have.
So it originates from a French philosopher, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and it was basically his way of critiquing excess exploitation and the moral bankruptcy of the wealthy elite. And it has a few different parts to it. Basically, they're movies that show the richer class exploiting others for their own gain, hiding behind traditions or elitism, and eventually they're overthrown or exposed in some sort of way and they're punished. So, and they're also out of touch. They're fragile and they can be like monstrous beneath the visage of propriety, which is this movie through and through. Other movies that sort of show this sort of trope is Parasite, made in 2019, The Menu from 2020, and the Knives Out franchise as well.
Also a good movie.
Yeah, very famous eat the rich themed tropes. So when they're sort of cloaked in their tradition, the ritualistic murders throughout this and the lethal deal with the demonic entity is a perfect metaphor for how the real world wealth is often accumulated through exploitation and morally dubious means. So they often say through the movie, this is something we have to do or we'll die. And that's literally the family's logic, and it's satirized throughout. And it's also really funny at the end when there's that small moment where they're like, we actually did this for nothing because nothing is happening to us and it's dawn. And that's just that, like they believe it so much that that's the way things are, that they're literally these elitist people going to kill innocents because of it. And I also liked it how within this movie, the hypocrisy of this wealthy class sort of bred into the madness of these characters as well. So they were incompetently rich throughout as well.
Yeah, like you look at them and like, yeah, the dad probably has some business sense, but then you look at the rest of them and you sort of like this, and I think that's the reason why this is why I think Daniel and that were like were made to pick those spouses, because they sort of had the more business sense and the more go get them than the actual children themselves.
Yeah, I feel like he probably picked charity. Like Daniel probably picked charity because his family would have approved. And Daniel, obviously, he says through the movie that he's the fuck up of the family. So he would have been trying to do anything he can to try and impress his family or trying to gain their acceptance. Yeah. And getting a wife that fit their family mold, he probably would have thought, this is
and
getting me
like
points in that space.
Take attention off of him.
Yeah.
So like he can just do whatever the hell he wants because he's got someone that they approve of and they like that can do all the family shit, and he can just sort of step aside and just try and drink all the memories and everything from Mabe's family away.
Yeah. In the eat the rich trope as well, it shows how the powerful and the rich elites are protected by their system. And if you notice through the movie, who are the first people to die? Yeah, the help through this. And who are the people that are doing most of the dirty work? The main butler. Yeah, he goes out to try and find Grace when she's running through the forest and drag her back in the car. And what are all the Domas family doing?
Standing around the table.
Standing around the table looking at the phone. Yeah, drinking. So they're literally doing nothing. And it's that hypocrisy and that system that is literally protecting them. And that's really important for the eat the rich trope. You know, the maids are accidentally killed by crossbows. Like they're pulling these traditions out and saying this is something we must do. We've made these deals with the devil, but they can't operate the weapons.
Every time they kill one of the, there's like, does this count?
No, the help don't count. And even that line is like the help don't count. That's their opinion on the people that sort of help them throughout the house and of the lower class as well. But yeah, I also love the line whenever one of them's killed, it's just like, she was my favorite. Yeah.
For help. And then that poor other maid who's in the dumb she's like, I'm not even a maid. He's
Tony just likes the way I dance.
Yeah, just the way I dance. Like, God damn it.
Yeah. I think that the ending for me, even though it was a shock when I saw it, I was like, wow, that was abrupt. But I think the best part about the fact that they all exploded, especially in this eat the rich trope as well, was in the end, it showed that for the first time in all of their lives that these rich, entitled people were completely powerless. You know, their wealth couldn't save them, their help couldn't save them, their system couldn't save them anymore. They were literally so powerless, and it was so sudden and so abrupt that they couldn't hide from it. And Alex goes and tries to apologize to Grace, and he they try to run away, some of them try to run away, and then they explode as they're running out the door. And Alex, you know, begs for forgiveness, but literally nothing can escape them from their fate. And it's almost like Grace, covered in blood and ash, she doesn't just survive this in the end. She watches their entire house burn down. Her wedding dress is in shambles. It's a symbol of her rejecting that institution of marriage and the transactional merger into the elite society that she's sort of with Alex in for. And then, you know, that last line, you know, in-laws while she's smoking a cigarette. It's just that last sort of dot on the trope of the eat the rich. I've gained a liking for movies like these, and especially the that's the main one, like the eat the rich trope. But the other one that's prominent throughout this is the deadly game one, which we sort of talked about a little bit, and it's very common through horror movies. Very common in like the Saw franchise and the Menu, and it basically depicts where there's this narrative where a character or a group of characters is forced to participate in a game or a challenge, often under duress or where the stakes are life and death, basically. And they have to do this or they will die. And it's frequently used in horror, thrillers, dystopian future sort of movies and things like that. It's even used in the Hunger Games. Like the teenagers are set in that arena and they actually have to compete for survival. And that's the same thing that we were talking about before with The Deadliest Game made in 1932, that piece of literature that everything sort of spawned from. And Ready or Not definitely does that as well, where Grace unknowingly, so there's that deceit there. As she didn't do it under duress, she did it under deceit. So she was tricked into marrying Alex. And he's probably the biggest asshole character for me because he was so selfish in marrying her. Like he didn't even tell her what she was marrying into. For one, he's like that performative morality. He's only good when he's being watched or he has to. Because as soon as he found out that she would not stay with him after this sort of started, he didn't want to save her or protect her anymore because her use to him was over. And that, like, he's my most hated character in this.
100%. And like
flip-flopping like a flipper fish.
And at first he's like, I'm going to get you. Like, you put me in this situation to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we mean you'll help me get out of here. You're the one that brought me.
Yeah, he promised too. He was just like, I promise I'll help you get out of this. And then there's a lot of things online that say he turned because she murdered his mother. And I don't know if I think that's true because I feel like
I think it not so much that, but like it was like the final nail in the coffin of her being me and you done.
Yes, I think so too. I think that was the thing.
And then he's like, well, fuck, I got nothing left now.
Yeah, that he did to realize, she did that and he realized that there was no way that he would have a relationship with her, not because of what she did, but because of what has happened to Grace. Yeah, she wouldn't be able to like psychologically get over it and look at him and be with him in any kind of fashion after this. So he thought, well, you know what? I'll go back to my family, which is another trope of those rich sort of traditions. They pull people back in as well, which is what happened to Alex. But yeah, there's the deadliest game sort of trope. It always involves involuntary participation, which is what happened with Grace. There's structured rules and rituals, which is explained by Tony at the start during the dinner scene. I liked his monologue too. I thought that story was good, had me hooked in there. There's a power imbalance as well. So in this particular incident, in Ready or Not, the power imbalance was the fact that there was like 6 or 7 family members versus the one who was hiding. And they're at a severe disadvantage because they had weapons and she did not have any weapons until she started finding the guns, even though they were useless at using the guns. And there's like moral, psychological stakes at play. So there's allies that betray and they compromise who they are in order to play in this game. And, you know, a very common movie throughout with this theme, the deadly game trope, is the Saw movies, and where they play violent moral puzzles as well throughout this. So
yeah, I mean, I do like the when you're saying how like they had like the advantage even though they were really useless with weapons, and I love the fact that like Charity, when she has that big ass crossbow and she aims at Grace and flies it and just goes left field and hits a bird.
yeah. And then, she has the machine gun too at one point, doesn't she? Or the rifle.
She gets her gun out of her purse.
Yeah. And she just, whiffs it every time.
With Fitch, like he's on the toilet trying to read like how to use a crossbow.
Getting to know your crossbow.
And then the poor Emil is just useless with every weapon she touches, and she ends up, well, except for that one dancer mage, she kills the rest of the mates herself. Accidentally.
Yeah, she's actually, we talked about what these characters embody. She's kind of we've been talking about how they're incompetent, but she's actually the one that embodies that the most, because she's also impulsive. She's addicted to that validation. She always wants everybody to, like, when she killed the mate, she was like, I got her. She wants everybody to know. She's reckless, and, you know, she believes in this ritual as well. And her scenes kind of mock how status doesn't equate to skill. It's especially when it's handed down through like generationally and not through merit. So her character represents that wholly and solely, and also the vices that come with. They all have a vice.
And she's obviously like on the daddy's girl. The daddy's girl character who's like, I'm such a fuck up, and then goes to the dad, and dad like hugs her and says, no, you're not, sweetie. You're the best. And she's the coddled child that can do no wrong, even though she does a lot of things wrong.
Yeah, Daniel's vice is alcohol. Hers is cocaine, and then Alex's is like the lure and seduction of power. Yeah, which is exactly the same as Charity, which is weird that Daniel married her.
Yeah, but Charity's like that ruthless, cutthroat, business savvy, and Christian Brun is that sort of the kiss ass, sort of do anything, sort of henchman part of the family who will do anything to be for
he's
the family.
He's a social climber. He's clueless in that regard. And he's illustrating his disconnect and comic ineptitude by trying to watch a YouTube video moments before he's going to use this to kill somebody. Like, it's just complete satire.
Yeah, he does want to fuck up. He wants to prove that he can be part of this family, blah blah. And, like,
that he deserves the wealth.
Yeah. And then Aunt Helen is just like
she's the traditionalist, man. She's like
traditionalist. She's like the big how they say, like, the rich is like a cult. She's like the forefront of that cult of rich.
She's
and
zealously
tradition.
committed. 100%. She's zealously committed to this tradition. She's lost something before. She lost her husband last time they played hide and seek, and she reflects how this trauma can be twisted into justifying and perpetrating this violence. So it happened to me, therefore it has to happen to you. If a tradition had to happen to me and I had to lose the love of my life, it has to happen to Alex too. That's not fair if it doesn't. That's her character.
Yeah. And then McDowell's Becky, she's like sort of the two-faced character.
Yeah,
on
exactly.
one hand, she's actually trying to be all nice and polite, and then on the other hand, she's like, fuck this bitch.
Yeah. She looks at how the rich people will be nice to your face, but then behind closed doors, they're all about themselves. It's that civility that's masking as cruelty. She
tries to be nice to her, but then goes back and tells everyone, all right, we got to stop fucking up, we got to kill her. We got to find her and kill her. Stop messing around, stop fucking her. She's like the one who's like, come on guys, we got to do this for our, like, we got to keep our family safe. We got to do this for our family. She's like the keeping it in the family sort of orientated, like making sure that nothing bad happens to their rich family and they stay rich, they stay powerful.
I thought her death at the hands of Grace was pretty symbolic.
Especially with
Because,
box.
yeah, especially with that box, because that's the crux of their wealth, and she used it to kill Becky, and it kind of signifies the downfall of that elitism, and especially when it's built on blood and it ends in blood in the way that Grace sort of ends Becky. But she's the only family member that Grace actually kills. The others are accidental or through a varying set of circumstances. Like, you could argue that maid was kind of her fault because she turned the dumbwaiter on, but
yeah. Well, she didn't turn on the maid did. So she opened up, the maid was in there.
She was trying to get
she's
away.
like, get out. They're not going for you. They're going for me. Let me in. She's like, she's over here. And then the maid tries to hit the button to leave her there. And then, because she's got the door open, she like tries to stick it out to close the door and then gets caught and dies.
Yeah. And I think that Tony, the father figure, he's just blind devotion to wealth. He's steeped in tradition. He's that male authority figure. His father did it. His great grandfather did it. Yeah, and he clings to that ritual like legacy with this religious fervor. Like
but he's also the flippant. So like how he wants to change some of the rules to the things. Like he wants to keep the weapons, but he ended up getting rid of the mask that his father brought into it. And how they're like, oh, we can use the camera, like we can't use the cameras. And then it's like, oh, we can use the cameras. And the sister's like, no, we can't. Tradition. And he's like,
if he had cameras, if our great grandfather had cameras, he would have used them in the spirit of the game. Yeah, I think he's definitely steeped in that tradition, but he will also, and that's another thing that is very symbolic of the elitist class, is that they will manipulate tradition,
to get what they want.
To get what they want, yeah, and that's in this movie and also in real life. So I think that each of these characters are really cleverly sort of constructed as an element of satire of that sort of class system, and putting Grace in there and naming her Grace especially is really powerful, because she's just a working class broad that's bringing down their entire dominion. I thought it was really creatively done, and that was kind of like the hook for me in this horror movie, because horror movie for a horror movie's sake I can't really watch, but this had enough of that sort of underscored subtext that I was like, this is actually pretty interesting to get through. So I really liked the fact that there was those two tropes at work, the deadly game trope and also the eat the rich trope. But yeah, it was just really good to analyze these characters. And when we've talked before, when there's an ensemble cast, it's kind of hard for any of them to shine. But I think because they all represented one aspect that the directors and filmmakers were trying to portray, it kind of worked. So I think it did well.
I was actually just looking, because how you were saying about names.
Yeah.
And like, so all like the family's names are all pretty, like, not like Alex, Tony, Emil.
Emily.
Is it Emily? Oh.
Yeah, Emily.
Yeah. Becky. So Alex, Becky, Emily, Helen. Like, they're all sort of normal names, but then you got like the people married again, Charity, Grace. And then so I looked up Fitch, trying to see if like Fitch had any sort of like other meanings, and it actually has a couple. And it's like so there's one thing, the old French word for Fitch, for iron pointed implement, usually like crossbow bolts, spears, old fashioned weapons, which is what the only thing they're allowed to use in this game is the old fashioned weapons. But also it is also Fitch for the fur or pelt, and like a lot of rich people wear like all the furs and stuff like that. Or it used to be also a predatory mammal similar to a ferret.
Oh yeah. So yeah, a ferret's like a rodent too. So he's like weaseling his way up the social order there too.
So I thought I'm like, oh, I'll look at it, because like Charity, and she's pretty much like the opposite of Charity, and then Grace comes in, she's her own saving grace really, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if Fitch means anything, and they're like, yeah, a couple of things that sort of, I wouldn't say that probably doesn't really correlate to the movie, but it's just interesting that like some like names for some pointy iron old fashioned weapons, which is what they would have used, which they sort of used, like old fashioned like crossbows and whatnot, and old school guns and everything, and then but also like the like name of what rich people would wear, those fur coats and the fur deck warmers were there, and even predatory ferret.
Yeah. Let's get into our most valuable takeaway. All right. This is the Heart and Soul of the podcast, where we break down the one thing that hit the hardest, stuck the longest, or taught us something new from what we just watched. It is our moment to spotlight the takeaway that made us think, feel, or see things differently. This is what we learned from Ready or Not from 2019. There's a lot of things I learned from this movie, Brash, like a lot of things that I learned in terms of like horror movie tropes and the various different subtexts. But the biggest thing that I kind of learned as a life lesson for this was, to hell with fitting in, rejecting that toxic acceptance that that Grace was trying to get. Like it's darkly funny and it's an allegory, but it's like what happens when you try too hard to belong in a place that was never really meant for you. That's kind of what I got out of it, because Samara Weaving, Grace, she tries so hard to be a part of this family, to be accepted by a new husband, the wealthy, like eccentric family. And at the start she says they're only moderately fucked up, but I think really she knows that they've kind of got their issues as well. And she's kind, but she's awkwardly charming, and she's genuinely eager to connect with them, and even to face obvious discomfort, going through this game. Like if it was just a normal game, it'd be something that was kind of whimsical, but she wanted to go through that kind of thing because she'd never experienced a family before. So there's that relatable emotional truth where there's that quiet anxiety that she feels about trying to fit into a new social structure. And I think we've all been there. Like everybody's been in that situation before, where you're trying to fit into a social structure or a school setting or a new friend group, and you sometimes you find yourself doing things that you wouldn't normally do, or sometimes you find yourself, not always, but sometimes you'll find yourself betraying some of the things that make you who you are. And that's why I found the smoking a little bit sort of funny, because she would smoke in front of Alex and be her true self there, or as a representation of her true self. But then around the mum and the family, she wouldn't. And then right at the end, when they were all dead, she smoked again. And it's like, these rules are unspoken and you're trying to fit in with them, but it kind of falls into that people-pleasing category as a survival strategy.
Yeah, like, and with that whole, like you're saying, like the high school mentality of like, there's the cool kids, try to fit in with the cool kids. Like Fitch, he's like the kid that was uncool that has managed to find his way into the cool kids club and will do anything to stay in the cool kids club.
Yep. And he is doing that people-pleasing thing. Like he's obviously not a killer. Like he points the crossbow in the wrong direction. He has a nervous tummy, as he said, and he goes and he tries to learn how to use it to fit in. Like he's doing something that he obviously doesn't want to do. Converse to that is Charity, who's like all about it. And I love that scene that was probably my favorite scene, when Daniel talks to Charity and he says, "Do you remember what you said when I told you about all of this?" Like he didn't even blink. And that was when he kind of realized that maybe she is not the person that he thought she was.
Yeah, Charity.
Yeah.
Because Charity is sort of like Samara's character Grace, if Grace had have been more power hungry.
Yeah.
It's so Grace and Charity are sort of two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
So if anything had been slightly different, Samara might have wanted into the family more, and she could have ended up a lot like Charity, but she stayed true to herself and was rejected them and sort of stayed true to herself.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, because a lot of the time, people going through that people-pleasing sort of mentality, like Grace was and like people do in real life, sometimes they think, if I'm good enough, then they'll see that I belong. Where sometimes you're trying to fit into a situation where A, they don't want you to belong in the first place, which is heartbreaking sometimes when it's talking about a real life situation, and obviously this situation too. But also it's kind of like realizing that you don't truly want to belong there. You just want a connection. Like that place isn't the place for you to belong. You just really want a connection with somebody, and finding that connection with reliable and trustworthy sources is the key. Not just putting yourself out there to people who don't really see you for who you are, which is what happened with Grace. And she starts to fight back against that. Like and it's produced through her wedding dress as she starts to become, torn and bloodied and stuff. And she starts to rip off her shoes and she starts to use weapons and fight. That's her like fighting to survive. And she's sort of stopping being liked at that point. She doesn't want to be liked. She just wants to survive at that point. She starts to fight back. And, I think her asserting her right to exist on her own terms is where she moves through her transition. But in a real life sort of situation, when you're looking at those people-pleasing sort of behaviors, it's about asserting who you are and knowing your rights as a person who deserves acceptance for who you are. That's
There's one thing we haven't really talked about or touched on. I thought was really interesting was the children.
Oh yeah, bro, they were indoctrinated. Hey,
and how when after Samira clocked that kid, which I think was one of my favorite parts of the movie. I mean, I'll be angry too if it's a kid shot me in the hand. Afterwards, but the mom picks up and says, "What happened?" She's like, "Oh, I shot her," blah, blah. And she's like, "I'm so proud of you." I'm like, dude, the kid's like 9. The hell, what kind of mother are you? And and like, fully getting, like they're fully like, and like they must have been told prior about like the history and what happens and stuff like that.
The line that hit me the hardest in that very scene there was when somebody said, like the kid was explaining what was happening, and they said, "Oh, why would you?" I think it was Daniel. He said, "Why would you shoot her? Why would you do that?" And then he said, "Because that's what all of you wanted to do." So it just shows that kids are a product of their environment in that way, and in this
like you see, like you do.
Yeah, exactly. And in this sort of like most valuable takeaway that we're talking about when we're talking about trying to fit in and to hell with fitting in, kids really don't have a choice in that kind of matter, and that's what makes it hard, especially when they're mirroring or trying to fit in with adult behaviors or environments that are really toxic or unhealthy. So they're really just victims in that sort of regard. And that's what perpetuates, in this instance, the Domas family tradition, is because they get them when they're so young and they fit them in when they're so young, and it's literally all they hear and all they witness, and all of their environment is surrounded by that. So it's just so tricky for them. But the good thing about Grace is that she totally rejected that. Like the toxic system and the demand for her submission was, she was not about that at all. She doesn't save them. She doesn't forgive her husband. She literally walks out of a burning mansion, blood covered, cigarette in hand. It's like she's reborn. She's walking out of this, and the firefighter asks her, like, "What happened?" And she just goes, "In-laws." That's her like acceptance. It's a mic drop moment, but it's that moment of clarity for her where she's just like, "This is not a family I want to join." Like, no one deserves your loyalty at the cost of your self-worth, basically. So I think that she really does go through a bit of a character journey through this. So even though one of our Redditors said that we learn nothing about this character, we don't know anything about her history, I think we learn enough to know that she came from a particular place of being a real people pleaser and really wanting to fit into a particular family, because all her life she's just bounced from family to family and she wanted a unit. But in the end, she learns about the cost of her self-worth and how it's not worth her giving everything up to fit into a space. And I think like that's more character development than some characters go through in a lot of movies. So I thought that was good.
And definitely one of her best roles, I reckon.
Yeah, 100%. Are you ready to rate it?
I am.
Okay, let's go to the Fandom Portals on board. It's time to rate it and rank it. Each host has 5 stars to give this movie out of 5 categories. We have story and script, characters and performances, direction and tone, visuals and soundtrack, and the overall enjoyment. If it hit the mark, hosts award a star. If it didn't, hosts keep that star. If it was almost great but missed the mark, it's awarded half the star. By the end of the segment, each host will have their own score for the movie out of 5. We then take that average and add it to our official Letterboxd on board. If you want to follow that, then you can do so at Letterboxd, and we're always at Fandom Portals. Okay. All right, so story and script. I gave this half a star. And the reason I did that was because I feel like the satire is clever and fun, but the whole premise kind of runs thin. Like it's an hour and a half movie and it runs on a single premise. And the mythology for me, as we talked about at the start, was a little bit undercooked. So I think just story-wise, when we're talking about the premise of the story and the script, I feel like half a star is what I would award it. What about you?
100% agree. Half star for me as well. And pretty much the same thing. Like it felt like it went through everything too quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that has to do with the runtime, an hour and a half.
And probably the fact that they thought it was only a one-time deal.
Yep. Yeah. Agreed. All right. Characters and performances. I gave this a full star, not only because Samara Weaving is completely magnetic in this, and she evokes that fear response so gutturally in the way that she screams and the way she acts under pressure. under the way she sort of handles herself. But I also thought that the supporting cast committed fully, like especially Adam Brody. We said that he plays sarcastic so well. The lady that played Charity, Elise Levesque.
She's also from the Orville. She's in the Orville.
Oh yeah, she's too. Yeah, she plays Wenda in the Orville. Yeah, yeah. She plays like sadistic and cruel so well in that movie as well. They have very little screen time as an ensemble cast, but they do enough to really portray the things that they need to portray. So the performances for me, I gave them a full star. And for the character arc that Grace goes through, that we talked about in the MVT section, where she goes from that hopeless sort of people pleaser, wanting to fit into a family, any family, to then finding her self-worth at the very end through struggle. I think that is, like, for 90 minutes, I think that's great. So full star for me.
Yep. I'm exactly the same, full star, because of Adam Brody. No. or Adam Brody's that entire star. I loved each and every one of their characters, as we've talked extensively on how each of them are different in certain ways, and all bring their own sense, like own comedy sort of goals to their characters. With of course Adam Brody's Daniel character being really sarcastic and cynical, but even like Melanie's Emily, who's sort of that daddy's girl who accidentally kills all the maids. It's Fitch's just. He's almost, it's almost endearing and charming. Suck up.
It's almost cute, isn't it? It's almost cute that he's trying so hard.
But yeah, I think that for a movie that didn't cost a lot, like they probably wouldn't have paid a lot to do this. I reckon they all put in such a great effort.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, direction and tone. For me, I gave this another full star because it strikes the perfect balance between horror and comedy, and that's kind of hard to do. Originally, it's hard to blend themes as it is, but they also underlaid a layer of satire in there too, which was great. And I just loved the shots that they used and the various different sort of camera angles that they used to portray like the fearful look on Samara Weaving's face a lot of the time through the movie, and then also the shaky sort of camera operators when they were using the chase sequences as well was really put you in the moment. So I gave it a full star as well.
Yeah, I also give it a full star because in the same vein of because this came just after Get Out and at the same time as like Us, and sort of like between 2017 and sort of 2022ish, these sort of movies about sort of these satire sort of movies and the comedy movies sort of had another bit of a rise from like your original satire movies, like your scary movie and your dance movie and superhero movie, like all those where they just sort of make fun of
those are real
genres,
tongue in cheek.
Yeah, and they make fun of other genres. These sort of satire versions of these horror movies where it's still blood and gore, but like because for me, like I don't really consider them horror in the sense of I'm going to sit there and something's going to jump out at me and scare the crap out of me. But it's just more of like it takes a bit of, it sort of makes fun of it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because you get those sort of horror movies that are comedy, a bit of comedy in them as well. But it's a lot darker, whereas this one's, I think, is a lot more lighter in a way. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with like Nope and Get Out and Us. They're probably a little bit more darker than what this is. But it's still a fun and enjoyable ride nonetheless.
All right, so full star for you?
Star.
Very good. All right, visuals and sound. Now, I think this movie used a really good mixture of CGI and practical effects for all the blood work. I thought that was done really, really well. For me, it wasn't really over the top. That's coming from a guy that doesn't really do horror, but I still thought it was pretty okay. The thing for me was that the visuals really enhanced the tension, but also the absurdity of this movie, which was a tricky sort of balance. But the biggest thing for me was the soundtrack, like the use of both diegetic and non-diegetic sound. The soundtrack immersed me in the tense moments, but that song,
run,
yeah, run away and hide. Let's just say that like every now and then my son will ask me to play hide and seek, but now whenever he does that, I sing that song. And I actually drove my partner Kalia up the wall because it was an earworm for me. I put it on the threads. I was like, I couldn't get it out of my head. I literally couldn't get it out of my head. I was singing it in the shower to the point where she actually had to sit me down quietly and be like, Aaron, enough.
Yeah, please
Like,
stop
it was
singing that
just
song.
so catchy, and it kind of reminded me of the same kind of aspect as like the BioShock games, where they have those really old time, and even Fallout, those really old timey songs in a really obscure kind of setting where it doesn't belong, and it just fits so well. And yeah, I just thought that was perfect. You know, the 100-second song used to count down, and yeah, I hope they use something similar in the next movie, or even the same song, because yeah, I loved
Well,
it. I
Sort
gave
of
it a
reminds me
star.
of Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah, yeah,
Like that's the song that plays on the radio before Jeepers Creepers comes in. Yeah.
yeah.
But
Get them.
another great horror movie. But yeah, so sorry, what
I gave it a
full
full
star?
star. Yeah,
I was getting mine's hard. I do enjoy it all, and again that song at the end on the recorded old song when they all start exploding, great, absolutely fantastic. But I had to give it half star, I think, for me, because it's for me like coming off of just watching Bloodlines, Final Destination, like the grotesque murder, like killings in that are just
next level.
next level. Whereas this one, like with the dumbwaiter, a similar sort of thing happens in Final Destination, not with the dumbwaiter, but a similar sort of thing happens. And I looked at that one, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm like, not as gruesome as I thought it could be. But I mean, like they're pretty bloody, like, and it's a bit made more fun, like when they get shot in the mouth with the crossbow bolt, and every time that the other tries to talk, you hear a guy with like Austin Powers. It was, it was just absolutely hilarious until she like finally has enough and gets the axe and just stops her. Yeah, for me, Eric, it's and like when she gets splash all blood, like it's like, oh, look at that corn syrup. It was good, but like I've watched enough horror movies,
Yeah,
and it's sort of like it was good, but like it
you've
just
seen
all
better.
yeah, it just didn't quite me thing. But yes, no, I do agree with that song though. That song they're playing, because I've actually got on my Spotify now. It's like at the top of my new like list of my Spotify. So every time I jump in the car in the morning to drive to work, it's the first song that plays.
Oh, that's funny. Especially good to go to work.
All right, so that's half a star for you.
Half star. Yeah.
Lovely. All right, and lastly, it is impact and legacy, or as we like to call it, your overall enjoyment. Now, I enjoyed the heck out of this movie. I gave it. See, this is the one that I struggled with the most because I really, really enjoyed it. It was memorable. It was bold. It was buzzworthy for the time. I don't know if it's timeless, whether it's like a cult classic. I would probably rewatch it. I already watched it twice, so I definitely has rewatchability. I just think for me, like as I said before in the pod, the ending, I would have loved for it to just really drive home that social commentary point, as opposed to letting the working class kind of win. Yeah. And I know that sounds like a little bit. I like to see that sort of thing in movies because it's like it's a social commentary and it's provocative. So I don't know if I can give this a full star or half a star. I'm struggling with it, Brash. Tell me yours first, and then I'll decide.
So I gave it a half star for overall enjoyment because I do find it overly enjoy. I've watched it. I watched it when it came out years ago. And rewatching it now, I sort of found myself because I was playing Video Rising at the same time. So I'm like, I'll go watch this movie again so I remember it. And I found myself like skipping over a few parts where I'm like, oh yeah, I know what happened here. Just get through it a bit quicker. And but then I still did end up finding myself watching the majority of it because it is enjoyable to watch. And like the casts, I think the cast for me is what made it the best.
The draw, yeah.
All the like running around sort of thing wasn't as great, but like all the interactions, especially like Adam Brody's interactions with all the rest of the family members, was always really good to watch. For me, like it's a good watch. If a friend hasn't seen it and they're like, "Oh, is there a funny sort of scary like horror movie or like gory movie that I could watch?" I'd be like, "Yeah, you should watch this."
Yeah,
and it's like
stuff
something I suggest or watch with a friend who hasn't seen it. But like, I wouldn't go out of my way. Like, if someone's like, "Oh, pick a movie we want to watch," it's probably not one that I'd pick.
Yep, fair enough. So half a star for you. I think I'll give it half a star as well because yeah, it does have that rewatchability for me. But yeah, I think I would have liked to see the social commentary driven home. The ending was a little bit too abrupt for me, and yeah, I just think there was a lot of good points about it. But again, I also think that the like the undercooked mythology and the thin plot, it would probably get very tiresome if it was on your regular rewatch sort of schedule. So half a star for me too. Which means that I have scored it a total of 4 stars and you have given it a total of 3.5 stars, which means it has an average of 3.75. At 3.75, we have Spider-Man No Way Home. Fantastic Four and Ready or Not.
Actually, I'd almost put it above them.
I kind of would too.
Yeah.
I'd set it above them, which means it's in our top 10.
Yep.
All right. So Ready or Not sits in our top 10 at 9th on the Fandom Portals honor board. It sits below Big Fish and above Spider-Man No Way Home at 3.75. So that is Ready or Not from 2019. Let's do our sign-offs. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode on Ready or Not from 2019. We are the Fandom Portals Podcast. If you want to join our mailing list, you can do so at www.fandomportalspodcast.com. Through that mailing list, you are included into all of our giveaways. We have a monthly newsletter that tells you all of our recommendations and also what is coming in the month beyond. We won't spam your email, guys. It's just to keep you updated on the Fandom Portals news. If you want to get involved in the episodes, you can do so by joining our socials. That's at Threads, Instagram, and Reddit. We're always at Fandom Portals. Next week, it will be the last week of the month, so therefore we are kicking back off on our Portaliers pick episode. And from our list, we have randomly picked from the wheel of movie suggestions given to us by our community. And the one that came up was Ben Affleck's Jersey Girl by Kevin Smith, also starring Liv Tyler. So I'm really excited about this because about 2 weeks ago, maybe less, 2 weeks ago, I, for one reason or another, started binging Ben Affleck movies, and I watched like 5 of them, and I don't know why I did it, but this is awesome because this is another one that I didn't watch at that time that I get to watch now. So I would like to thank Markev81, our community member that suggested that movie. We're doing Jersey Girl next week for our Portaliers pick episode. All right, this is Aaron signing off this episode of the Fandom Portals Podcast. Brash?
Aaron, do you think this is a fucking game?
Yes, it's hide and seek.
It is.
See you guys.